What's up, everybody? We're going to start week 3 in the NFL off with Chicago plus 11.5 to plus 13. Depends on which book you look at Kansas City. The over-under is 48.5 on this game. These two teams are 2-2 straight up the last 4. KC has a 3-1 edge in the against the spread margin, and the under is covered in all 4 meetings. They haven't played each other since 2019, so take that into account too. Justin Fields has hit the rush yards total over in 12 of his last 13 games for a 73% ROI, and he's hit the pass attempts under in 6 straight road games for a 72% ROI. He's also hit the pass yards under in 7 of his last 8 games for a 54% ROI. Cole Kmet has hit the receptions over in 6 of his last 7 games for a 74% ROI. Darnell Mooney has hit the reception yards total over in 7 of his last 8 games. 66% ROI on that one. Jerick McKinnon hit longest rush under in 9 straight for an 81% ROI. And he's hit the rush yards under the last 8 games at home for 74% ROI. Noah Gray has hit the receiving yards over in 9 of his last 11 games for a 53% ROI. Mahomes has hit the pass yards over in 11 of his last 15 games for a 38% ROI. Isaiah Pacheco's hit the rush attempts under in 6 straight games for 73% ROI. I do like Kansas City. The spread is too much for me to put any money on it. Kansas City was not a good team against spread last year. I do think they are definitely by far the better team, but if you weren't covering the spread last year, until you show me you can cover the spread multiple times in a row this season, I'm just going to stay away from playing them. If I had to pick one, I'd probably lean very uncomfortably to Chicago with that number at 13. Maybe take Kansas City if I could find an 11, even though that's risky for me. I really don't like double-digit spreads. But anyways, take the Giants, San Fran last night, for example. What can you do? New England, minus 1.5 to minus 2.5 in New York to face the Jets. Over under 36.5, 37, depending on where you look. The Patriots are 10-0 straight up. In fact, they won 14 straight games versus the New York Jets, and they're 8-2 against the spread. Patriots have hit the team total over in 8 of their last 9 road games for a 67% ROI. New England have hit the game total over in 6 of their last 9 road games for a 67% ROI. Jets have scored last in 11 of their last 17 games for a 30% ROI. Garrett Wilson over 3.5 receptions and over 47.5 receiving yards. I think he gets around 60 or 70. Those two props I do like. Dalvin Cook over 26.5 rushing yards. I'm looking at Ezekiel Elliott over 24.5 rush yards and over 34.5 rush receiving yards combined. I'm looking at Breece Hall over 36.5 rushing receiving yards combined and over 44.5 rushing yards. I'm looking at those numbers a little more closely. Closer to game time is when I'll make my decision on them, but I do like the Garrett Wilson receptions over. In that game, this game scares me. I'm just staying away from it completely, but if you guys want me to make a pick, I'll say the Jets break the streak, but I'm not betting on that game except on the Garrett Wilson receptions prop. Next game, Buffalo minus 6 to minus 6.5 at Washington to face the Commanders. Over under 42.5 to 43.5 on this one. Buffalo 4-1 straight up and against spread versus Washington. The under is hit 3 out of the 5 meetings. Bills have hit the team total under in 7 of their last 10 road games for 44% ROI. Washington have hit the game total under in 8 of their last 11 games at home for 39% ROI. Josh Allen over 30.5 rush yards and over 1.5 passing TDs are the 2 props I'm looking at in this game. And I'm probably going to pick the game total under and maybe the team totals under in this one as well. I'm looking at those ones, but based on those streaks, I am going to pick an under on something in that game. I just haven't decided which one. Next up, Carolina plus 6, plus 6.5 in Seattle. Over under set at 42 on this one. The Seahawks are 7-3 straight up. Carolina's 5-4-1 against spread their last 10 verse. The over's hit in 7 of the last 10 meetings. Miles Sanders over 2.5 receptions. DK Metcalf over 4.5 receptions. I lean over on Sanders rushing yards at 60.5. DK receiving yards, I'm looking at playing those, but I do like both the reception totals. Not a big play on them, but I will be placing a small one on both of them. 1 second. Got to stay hydrated, especially with the pills I'm on for my lower lumbar sprain that I've been dealing with for 3 weeks. All right. On to Dallas, minus 11.5 to minus 13-point favorites in Arizona. Over-under set at 43 on this. Arizona 6-2 straight up and against spread their last 8 versus the Cowboys. The unders covered 5, 2, and 1. Prescott has hit the interceptions over in 10 of 13 games for a 51% ROI. Tony Pollard has hit the longest reception under in 8 of his last 9 road games for a 63% ROI. Prescott has hit the pass TDs total over in 9 of his last 11 games for a 44% ROI. And he's hit the rush yards total over in 6 straight games. Those are 2 props that I do like. Prescott over 1.5 passing TDs, and I like him over his rushing yards total as well. James Conner hit rushing yards total over in 7 straight for an 85% ROI, and he's hit the rushing attempts under in 8 of 10 for a 40% ROI. And he's also hit the rush yards total over in 9 of his last 11 for a 52% ROI. That kind of conflicts. I'm going to have to look into that James Conner one. My apologies. I believe I wrote it down wrong the second time, but we will see. On to the next game. Sorry about this. The medication I'm on gets me a little loopy at times, so this is an eventful week for me doing these picks once again. Anyways, Denver plus 4.5 to plus 6.5 at Miami to face the 2-0 Dolphins. Over under 47.5 to 48. This is a 1 p.m. start in Miami with Denver traveling across the country to play in the middle of the heat, the middle of the day when the sun and the heat are the hottest, sorry. Denver's 3-2 straight up and against spread versus Miami. Under's 3-2. Waddle concussion protocol. Watch that for Miami. He will be out as far as I heard. There's a lot of injuries this week, actually. I believe there's 4 quarterbacks that are sitting out, or there's 4 top picks that are sitting out, I believe. Anthony Richardson, etc., etc. Dolphins' first home game. Denver tend to give up big plays on defense. Tua, Tyreek, Mostert, they will go off. Broncos lost 2 in a row at home to opponents who, let's just say, aren't top-tier teams this year. Tua's 15-4 at home as a starter. Tyreek Hill, anytime TD, and over 84.5 receiving yards. I like those props. 255 receiving yards, 3 TDs so far this season in just 2 games. Tua over 37.5 on longest pass prop, and over 260.5 passing yards I'm looking at playing. He leads the NFL with 715 passing yards through 2 games. Jerry Jeudy over 3.5 receptions. 7 and 5 receptions so far in his first 2 games this year. He's hit 6 in a row going back to last season. Tyreek Hill over 86.5 rushing receiving yards total. And the other one I'm playing besides the 2 Tyreek ones I mentioned earlier, 2 over 1.5 passing TDs I like a lot in this game. LA Chargers +1 to +1.5 in Minnesota to face the Vikings. 2 0-2 teams, over under 53.5 to 54.5. Minnesota 4-1 straight up, 5-0 against spread versus the Chargers. Unders covered 3 of the 5 meetings. The loser season could be done as teams start 0-3 in the past 42 seasons. There's been 176 of them. Only 6 have made the playoffs. That's a 3.4% of them. Kirk Cousins, 15 pass TDs over 1.5 passing TDs over, sorry. TJ Hawkinson is the prop that I like the most in this and that I will be playing. Over 5.5 receptions. He's had 8 and 10 receptions so far in 2 games this year. And other than that, I'm staying away from the side. Miami, I'm all over Miami in that game if I didn't mention. They're one of my favorite plays this week. Dolphins and the Eagles, I've had money on since the lines came out Monday night, Tuesday morning. I forget which one it was. But I got a little parlay on the two of them. I got individual bets on the two of them as well. Chargers, Minnesota. I'm staying right away from that except for the TJ Hawkinson bet. Next up, we have Indy. Plus 7.5 to plus 8.5, depending on the book, in Baltimore to face the Ravens. Over under 43.5 to 44.5 on this one. The last 10 head-to-head, they're 5-5 straight up. The Colts have an 8-2 against spread record. And I forgot to write down the over-under. I apologize. Colts have hit the team total under in 11 of their last 20 games, 2% ROI. Baltimore have hit the first half game total under in 12 of the last 21 games for 13% ROI. Anthony Richardson, like I mentioned earlier, he's in concussion protocol. I lean under 44.5 on this one, and the Ravens straight up. Might play Lamar Jackson or Mark Andrews for an anytime TD in this one. I'm not sure yet. I lean Baltimore on the point spread as well. I don't like that big number, but I also don't trust Gardner Minshew. So I might like the Ravens. I might put a play on them to win by 10 plus points or something like that. Zay Flowers, I like him over 48.5 receiving yards and maybe an anytime TD. Next up, I'm taking a sip of water before we go on to Tennessee at Cleveland. Got to stay hydrated. Tennessee, 5-3 straight up versus Cleveland. They're +3, +3.5 in this one, over under 39.5. And they're 4-3-1 against spread versus Cleveland. Over has hit 7 of the last 8 games. I might make a play on over on that one. DeAndre Hopkins, over 4.5 receptions. He had 7 last week, 7 of his last 10 games overall. Tennessee's 2-0 against spread this year. No Chubb for the Browns is huge. Can Watson avoid those stupid fucking penalties, man? Like, what are you thinking? You're QB. You get a face-masking fucking penalty, and you bump into the fucking official. Like, honestly, until he gets his mind right, I don't think I will support Cleveland in this game. It's more than a field goal. I'll put my money on Tennessee. They always seem to be able to keep games close. They ground and pound you to death. Derrick Henry, over 89.5 rushing receiving yards combined. I like. He's covered 8 of his last 10. He's had 119 and 128 in the first 2 games this year. Derrick Henry, an anytime TD, I might play. DeAndre Hopkins, over 51.5 receiving yards. He's covered 8 of his last 10 this year. He's 1-1. 8 of his last 10 going back to last year. He's 1-1 this year. On to the final 2 games of the Sunday afternoon ones. Atlanta, +3 to +3.5 at Detroit to face the Lions, over under 46.5. Atlanta's 5-3 straight up and against spread versus the Lions. Under is hit in 6 of the last 8 meetings. Tyler Algier, over 40.5 rushing yards, 18 and 15 carries the first 2 games. Which makes me hesitate on Robinson's play in this, actually, now that I look at that. Rushing yards prop. And the Lions have only allowed 53.5 rushing yards per game this year and 3.6 yards per carry. I might play his rushing receiving yards prop with a lot of screens thrown his way. On the other side, staying on Atlanta's side, Kyle Pitts, over 33.5 receiving yards. Detroit have allowed 175 receiving yards to tight ends in 2 games this year. So I'll be playing Algier over 40.5 rush yards and Kyle Pitts over 33.5 receiving yards. Those are the 2 plays. I'm staying away from the game. 3 plus the hook. I'm not going to touch that. If that was 3 even or less, I'd be playing Detroit for sure. Even if they could blow them out, I'm not going to go there. But I do like Detroit to win on the money line. New Orleans, +1 to +1.5 at Green Bay. Face the Packers. Over under set at 42.5 on this one. Saints are 5-3 straight up and 6-2 against spread versus the Packers. New Orleans hit the first half money line, 4 of 9 for an 11% ROI. Green Bay have hit the second half game total under in 5 of their last 6 at home for a 57% ROI. Green Bay have hit the game total under in 12 of their last 20 games for a 15% ROI. Michael Thomas, over 55.5 receiving yards, 3 of 5 confidence. I really couldn't make out my rating. Look how bad my rating's been while I've been on these pills, but that's what that says. So my apologies. I was trying to read what the fuck I had said there. That's only a 3 to 5 on the confidence level. Derek Carr, undecided on his over 239.5 passing yards, and Chris Olave, over 64.5 receiving yards. He's had 60 and 112 receiving yards in his first 2 games. I might make a play on him. I'm staying right away from this game as well. I don't trust either of these Jekyll and Hyde teams, and you never know which one's going to show up. I could see either of these teams winning by double digits, or it being a 1-point game and a crazy game like Green Bay Atlanta was. Anyways, I'll do my Sunday nighter and the 2 Monday night games in the next video. I didn't want to overload you guys at once. Peace.